here's Doof inventing a mean way to clean his lawn.
Leaf blower-inator!
And here's Doof inventing a literal time travel device.
Oh, the time travel-inator!
He's put together over 400 inventions over the years, and they all have two things in common. They all end in inator, and they all cost a pretty penny. But which of Doof's inventions is the most expensive? Well, I've looked through dang near every single one of them, and I'm gonna figure out which one is. Starting with the episode Moon Farm. And as the saying goes, it ain't easy being green. And in Doof's case, that's both literally and metaphorically.
I noticed a beautiful garden on my neighbor's balcony. Oh, I got so jealous.
Okay, that explains the metaphorical bit, green with envy. But why is he painted green?
The guy at the store told me that my plants wouldn't grow because I didn't have a green thumb. So I got a big bucket of green paint and I poured it on myself. Except strangely my thumbs. I think it was the way I was holding the bucket.
But if you're Doof, if you can't join them, beat them. Because this is where he creates his latest device, the Moisture Suckinator. The name could use a little work, but I got a feeling I'll be saying that a lot today. Anyway, he decides he's gonna use Perry as his test subject.
Fire! Look at you! You're Pruny the Dehydropus!
He's not really great with naming his stuff, is he? Doof then starts scheming, wondering why his device didn't work on the plants, but did on Barry, which gives our favorite platypus enough time to turn the tables on him.
Income. Oh, poop.
After the guys get a few drinks down them, they're good as new, and Doof even gives up on the idea of targeting his neighbor's plants altogether. But it gives you guys a good little idea how petty his inventions are, and this one isn't just a useless over-the-top food dehydrator, it's an expensive useless over-the-top food dehydrator. It's gotta have all the right doodads and doohickeys on it to work, like a dehumidifier, a vacuum compressing core, and obviously technology that's slightly beyond our reach. Putting this together with all the trimmings will have to cost Doof right around $390,000, all because his innocent neighbor made him jealous, more pathetic than evil sometimes, huh? A lot of Doof's inventions are usually built so we can take over the tri-state area, but in License to Bust, he's got something else in mind. Groceries.
Behold, the red-green shiftinator! It can turn streetlights from red to green and get me home before my groceries get grosser. Ease.
Hey, we've all been there. If it's summer and if you've nabbed a pint of Halo Top at the store, 9 times out of 10, it's usually melted when you get home. I might be with Doof on this one.
Button and switcheroonie!
So it literally brings traffic to a standstill too. I'm gonna try to find a downside of this one.
I simply press this button and switcheroonie!
Oh, there's the downside. Well, obviously this starts causing chaos in town, but I actually think for once, Doof means kinda well. Especially when he starts putting his invention to use for more than a few bits of shopping.
And mother, a magician holding his breath, and an ice sculpture of a pregnant magician holding her breath.
Perry doesn't see it that way though, and he tries to take Doof down, even if it means a few other things than traffic lights get switched.
This is entrapment!
Even Phineas and Ferb's hair gets switched. It's all good though. Perry manages to give Doof a big fall from grace, or a parking lot, but that's not as poetic.
I hope I'm insured for this!
Bro, never mind the car. I hope you insured your Inator, because that thing sure ain't cheap. It's a military-grade, wirelessly functional ray with color-mutating technology. I mean, it sounds expensive. Obviously, this sort of thing doesn't exist in the real world. The closest we've got is a color-changing liquid that's being developed at the University of Pennsylvania, and that alone costs $5,000 per 10 milliliters of fluid. So when it comes to raw materials, the stuff to hold it together, the super advanced technology inside, and obviously its wireless ability, I'd say the red-green Shiftinator cost Doof a cool $3,350,000 to build, which is about 515,384 pints of ice cream, by the way. Cards on the table, we've all done something pretty embarrassing in our lives, right? Stuttered, fell over, pooped in a Target, specifically aisle 8, yesterday. All of us have something we lay in bed at night and think about for the rest of our lives. Well, for Doof, it's this.
I am a superstar!
The whole tape has been leaked, so all of Danville can see Doof at his lowest. So to try and get this out of the minds of people, he makes the delete from my mindinator.
Behold, the read my mindinator! Now, whatever I think of, I can push this button and delete it from every mind in the tri-state area!
So a little thought and a zap will put things straight, huh? The only problem is, have you ever tried controlling your thoughts? Kinda impossible. And Doof can't quite get the hang of it either.
My shoelace is all frayed. I'm going to have to replace the aglet.
Did somebody say aglet? Sorry, I couldn't resist. So it's actually aglets which get erased from people's minds, and poor old Doof doesn't realize what he's done.
And I won't be needing this anymore! I'm free!
Look! It's that idiot from the video again!
Let's use mockery to keep him inside.
I hope he doesn't use this as fuel and become a bad guy or something. Well, he certainly will when he sees how much money he's just wasted by smashing his invention on the floor. Full disclosure though, the delete part of his invention is actually all down to Perry, who had a universal delete button, so we'll take that away from the cost. Although it's still in its early development in our world, Doof is using a super advanced machine that uses something called fMRI imaging. The research grade machines used today cost around $3.4 million to make, and like I say, Doof's is far more advanced, so that'll have probably set him back $6.7 million just to develop. Then there's the helmet itself, the wiring, the screens, and all that funky stuff, which would be another $2 million, bringing the total inator to a whopping $8.7 million. I think if I bought one, I'd use it to instantly forget how much I just paid on it. I know they say if at first you don't succeed, try and try again, but Doof is getting pretty sick of trying to take over the tri-state area, only for Perry the Platypus to barge in and take him down. So being the evil genius he is, Doof has realized his next invention has to be able to destroy that egg-laying mammal of action.
Now I have the ultimate platypus elimination weapon! A giant killer robot man!
I don't know if it is or not, but if Norm's last name isn't a nader, I'm gonna be so disappointed. And what's weirder, he actually works.
The enemy of the platypus is...
Luckily though, Perry runs through Danville and makes Norm run into a giant bull statue. A bull statue with a perfectly sized head, if you know what I mean.
Are those slacks? Do they make you...
Thanks to being blinded by the bull, Norm makes his way into the History Museum, giving Perry enough time to figure out how to switch him off. Not that it takes a lot of brain power.
The enemy of the...
Hal, you stay out of this!
Just when Doof created an all-powerful killer robot and things looked up, he goes and puts a big off button in his back. All that time and money to make Norm and you go and do that? Anyway, speaking of money, Norm's gonna cost a pretty penny, that is for sure. He's got a pretty sophisticated AI system. The closest thing we've got to a robot like Norm is OpenAI's Figure 01, which cost around, I don't know, $15 million to train alone. And Norm's interface is far beyond what that thing is capable of, so that's $30 million just on his brain. And I haven't even mentioned his weaponry.
Weaponry, they want to make them fall on bended knee at your command. Bow their head, which they all understand with.
He's got blowtorch fingers, guns that pop out of every limb, and missiles in his chest. When Doof started putting this guy together, believe me, he spared no expense. The missile alone in Norm's chest would add another $2,350,000 to the tally, and all the other doodads would easily come out to another $1.8 million. Then there's the fact that he's a pretty giant frackin' robot, so everything is supersized. How much would a robot like Norm cost? Well, comparing him to a robot in Japan called Karatas, which is a pretty basic but giant lifting robot which costs over $1 million to make, Norm's probably a few feet bigger and way more advanced. So for all of his wiring, metals needed, motherboards, interfaces, yada yada yada, that'd be another $11.8 million to Norm's tally, bringing it to a grand total of $45,950,000. Which is a lot of money to be spoken to like you're an office intern, but then again, pretty cheap if it destroys your nemesis. Apart from flying, the most popular superpower people pick is invisibility, so it only makes sense that in Don't Even Blink, Doof makes a device that can make him disappear, which, now that I think of it, it's kind of strange because he's been invisible for like his whole life.
My Invisinator! I need an invisibility ray, you ask?
I didn't ask actually, but while you're there, go for it.
Well, you know when those cute little fireside girls come, so they come to the front door and they can see you. And you can't pretend that you're not home because they can see you.
So Doof invented something that humanity can't even begin to imagine, all because he got a little awkward by not answering the door to some kids. There's being an introvert, and then there's that. But the whole invisibility thing soon goes to his head.
and release the invisible tiger! So I can snap my whip at you! Get in there! Get back!
The attack of the invisible tiger gives Agent P enough time to escape his invisible cage and tackle Doof head on, sending him smashing into the ray itself. Doof doesn't quite have the upper hand though, because if it gets the parry, he can use the sound of his voice to track him down. So he does, and sends him back through the ray.
Invisible like... Ow! Oh, well, that came out of nowhere.
Obviously, this insane powerful gadget can't just be left in Doof's hands, so Perry turns the device on itself after setting it to invisible disintegration.
Hey, I was using that!
Like I said a little while ago, humanity hasn't really come close to making anything like Doof's Invisinator, but we have something called metamaterial cloaks. They're basically very small pieces of material that bend to light in a way that makes it look invisible, but they are crazy expensive to produce. For a piece that could sit on your fingernail, you'd be looking at $2 million. So there's serious change in the disappearing game. I know Doof's invention isn't the same as the material stated, but it's at the very least a good price benchmark. So taking that into account and the fact that it'd probably be cheaper to mass produce Doof's device too, I'd put the cost of the Invisinator right around $106,500,000. When cooking up an invention, Doofenshmittz seems to be a huge fan of the beam style inator. You know, a thing that shoots another thing and something crazy happens. He's done it so much, I think it's only fair to dedicate an entire entry just to them, because we'd be leaving a lot of money on the table otherwise. Like, I could hardly leave out the time he invented the mustache-inator.
See that guy down there with the beard?
But like most of Doof's inventions, it ends up getting turned on himself.
You have lost me completely. Hey, ow, I look just like my grandfather, Jose Doofenshmittz.
And talking about inventions that get used on him, I could hardly forget the inside-out-inator.
Oh, great. Now I have to make an outside-in-inator.
It's a shame that's the only time we see that inator, but considering I've had to wash my eyes out with bleach after that clip, might be a good thing. To cleanse the palate though, how about we look at one of the most memorable beams on the show, the chicken replace-inator. Basically, Doof's younger and better-looking brother is up for being the mayor of the year again, and Doof's got some foul play planned with his new device.
Chicken replace-inator! Back!
The idea is he wants to replace Roger's award with a live chicken once he's been handed it, which for Doof is like the perfect mix of petty and evil, but thanks to Perry, Roger's trophy is chickenless. Hey, I didn't say everything was chickenless, just the trophy. We've all heard the saying, fight fire with fire, but Perry takes that to the next level and fights chicken with chicken. This sounds delicious.
The rubber chicken, what are you gonna do with... Oh, look, it's chickens!
Look, you get the idea. Doof loves creating shooty things. He's created over 200 of these specific types of inators over the years, and each of them costs a pretty penny. We saw 3 there, and I think the first 2 could probably be done today. But the chicken replace-inator is a long way off and is 100% of the premium end of Doof's devices. So we're gonna save us all some time and estimate that each of his beam-inators would just average out at $1,018,000 each. Multiply that by 200 for a grand total of $203,600,000. Just as a side note, this doesn't include a few special, more premium beams that are still to come. For Doof's next invention, it's not the all-action, all-evil setup we're used to, and there's not even a mention of wanting to take over the tri-state area. Basically, Major Monogram has sent Perry around to Doof's place to check on him because, well, he's been kind of quiet lately.
My ex-wife Charlene is out of the country on one of those extreme eco-cultural exploration vacations. It's very expensive. That's my alimony she's throwing away.
Oh, so he's broke. I mean, it makes sense. Even with all the alimony he gets, dude spends fortunes on all of his inators, and it turns out he spent his last hunk of change on his new invention. So let's hope it's a good one.
I mean, I can't even enjoy using my new teleportinator. I'm just not in the mood.
So he's created a teleportation device. Notice how I didn't say a good teleportation device.
Oh, now I get it.
Nothing really happens with it though, and Perry manages to stop it spraying in no time. Doesn't exactly help Doof's money situation, but still, I think he's got lucky to be honest. We all know how bad teleportation can go, just ask Jeff Goldblum. Or Henry Stickmin. Now, you'd think that because it didn't do too much and felt fairly weak, the device would be towards Doof's low-end inventions. Well, think again. To even come close to what Doof's machine is capable of, you need to be digging in the deep end of quantum physics and buying things like a quantum scanner, which alone can be worth $200 million. Then you'd need something similar to dismantle and reconstruct atoms. I know this is a bit jargon heavy, but for every big science word I use, imagine the price going up by 50 mil. Because Doof's teleportinator would easily cost $393,750,000 to put together in the real world, if it were even possible. The next invention on our list is the star of the Phineas and Ferb movie, Across the Second Dimension, and it's probably best for Doofenshmittz to give us the rundown, because I don't get paid enough for that.
The other dimension!
Sir.
What?
I finished setting up the buffet.
Hey, Norm's back! I hope he remembered to take the off switch off his back. Anyway, the inator he was trying to tell us about is the other dimension-inator. It opens up a portal to, and you're not gonna believe this, another dimension. But before he can test out his new invention, he gets a surprise visit from Phineas and Ferb.
I stand?
The boys see that they've trashed Doof's invention, so they do the decent thing and get it fixed up for him. And they open up their first portal into an alternate dimension. It looks like things are finally coming up for poor Doof. Of all the dimensions to dig into, and he's gone and picked the one where he's the supreme ruler of all. Now that's finally a nice slice of luck. Obviously things get out of hand, and the even more evil Doof wants to control both dimensions and all that great actiony stuff. Our Doof actually has a change of heart and stops his evil counterpart in his tracks.
Well, at the moment, it just stops giant shuttlecock.
Oh, that's cool. We can help you fix it. Ferb is naturally handy with tools. I bet we could put this thing back together in no time. Okay, field compressor attaches to the auxiliary generator. Well, I think I see your problem. Everything's wired through this self-destruct button.
Wait a minute. I do not need that. You are absolutely right.
That prized possession was missed by the more evil Doof, so he hands him the train before agreeing to steal each other back in their own dimensions. You don't need to be Neil deGrasse Tyson to know a device that can rip open portals to alternate realities would cost a bomb. There'd have to be some sort of wormhole-like space folding mechanism thing and an anchor system so both realities can exist at the same time. All super complicated, probably impossible stuff, but to put cost into perspective, there were a few quantum computers built at Harvard for $45 million that just ran simulations of baby wormholes. So if Doof's other dimensioninator has the real deal inside, as well as all the other stuff mentioned, and obviously the power supply and other raw materials, I could see this costing at least $1.72 billion. And in all honesty, I might be underplaying that, but the truth is, we just don't fracking know. But what I do know is, Doof's got more expensive inventions than even that. It seems like money keeps pouring out of Doof's pockets with all these inventions. Speaking of pouring, that reminds me, he actually once invented a rain-making device, which he obviously called the Raininator.
I've been using it to pour millions of gallons of water into these clouds, causing it to rain all over the tri-state area.
But why old Doof gone to the trouble of having rain thunder down? Well, maybe he's turned over a new leaf and wants to fix the world's water problems. Or maybe he likes the sound of rain to get to sleep. Or he's using it to ruin a soccer game that was interrupting his trash TV show.
So with the help of my Raininator, I rained the game out. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Not exactly what I'd call evil, just super petty. While Doof binges his TV, Perry manages to escape, and while the evil genius is distracted, tears down the Raininator.
Ahí va la pelota!
Okay, so it wasn't for anything important, but Doof has managed to create something that no one in the real world has. He's essentially created a weather machine. Now, obviously, this device doesn't exactly create water, so the cost of gallons and gallons of the stuff has to be factored into the price too. And he's needed enough water to create a heavy downfall across the whole tri-state area for around a week. And a week's rainfall at a constant rate would be right around 1.4 trillion liters. So if you use the national average of 1,000 gallons costing $6, then this alone would set Doof back $2.1 billion. But we're not even done. What about the device itself? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just a giant shower head. But when I say giant, I mean giant. It's as big as a tower block. Sure, it's not as big depth-wise, but you've still got to be using serious amounts of material to build this thing because it has to support its own weight, survive weather changes, and channel thousands of gallons of water per minute without buckling. You're talking reinforced stainless steel or industrial-grade composite alloys shaped, welded, and hoisted into position hundreds of feet in the air. And then the amount of plumbing needed would probably rival that of a water treatment plant, so if you take all that into account, to make the world's biggest shower, you're gonna need at least $74 million, taking the Raininator to a staggering $2,174 million. Also, he can watch terrestrial TV uninterrupted. Get yourself a Netflix sub, Doof. It only costs you $7.99 at the recording of this video. Speaking of relatively simple inventions, let's take a look at what I call Doof's everydayinators. Starting with the episode Mommy Can You Hear Me, where Doof turns his pathetic dial to 11 after a falling out with a deli owner.
In a bowl of chicken soup, but it had a fly in it. So I took it to an entomologist.
It's a raisin.
But by the time he took it to the lab, his soup was cold and Doof was pretty annoyed. So from that moment on, he's sworn to run that deli out of business with his newest creation,
Chicken Soupinator!
Now that's a lot of soup. Luckily though, Doof didn't have to splash out the cash on the soup itself thanks to some nearby deli letting all that soup go for the price of a nickel, otherwise that'd be a hell of a lot more to pay. Oh, and by the way, the Chicken Soupinator isn't used for evil in the end, it actually saves the whole of Danville. The next donator isn't really what I'd call petty, I just call it sad. It's from the time Doof was bragging about having the best meatloaf in the world, you know, one that's been passed down his family for generations.
First created by my great-grandmother, Gretel Doofenshmittz, who passed it down to my grandpa, Jose Doofenshmittz, weird story there. Then he passed it down to my mom, who passed it down to Roger. Ugh.
He obviously stole it from Roger, though, and despite his bragging, Doof is super self-conscious about entering his prized meatloaf into a competition, so he invents this.
But just in case, I have the Rotteninator!
And of course, Doof doesn't rely on his family recipe, instead he gets a little trigger-happy.
Stop annoying me!
Fresh pickles!
Here's some refreshing milk.
Ew, it's curdled!
You'll never guess what he hits next.
Oh no, my meatloaf!
Classic Doof, and while he's out for the count, Perry takes the chance to churn up his invention before he can do more damage to the competition.
Ah! Curse you, Perry the Platypus!
We've had sad, we've had petty, and now it's time for the final third of Dr. Doofenshmirtz's evil. Well, sorta, you'll see what I mean. Basically, it's time for Doof to spend some time with Vanessa, and he doesn't let his daughter get in the way of his villainy. In fact, he asks her to pick up some blueprints for a new creation he wants to build.
I'm here to pick up an order for Doofenshmirtz.
Oh, yes. Your daddy just called.
So that's where the boys and Doof get most of their invention schematics from. Interesting. Anyway, what can Doof be building?
My space laser-inator!
Not a space laser-inator. And the reason why he wants a laser that can shoot things from space is not because he wants to destroy the moon or blow up a satellite. It's because of a billboard.
The billboard went up, my panoramic view is completely ruined!
But when he goes to switch on his new dastardly device, he's in for a cool surprise. That's no space laser-inator, that's a giant Sunday maker-inator. That naming thing is harder than it sounds, to be fair. Turns out that when Vanessa picked up the blueprints, she and Ferb got theirs mixed up, so that means the boys have Doof's invention.
Well, this can't be right. I was wondering what that thing was for. That must be the laser. It's a good thing we didn't attach it, huh?
At least no one got harmed. Well, Doof might have had a bad case of brain freeze, but it's a lesson learned, I guess. Who am I kidding? All three of these inventions will not be easy on Doof's bank account. The Chicken Soupinator is really just a glorified pressure hose that has an impressive bit of liquid housing and the capability to keep things at a roaring boil, like a garden hose with a kettle attached to it. Obviously, it's a little more advanced than that, but in the grand scheme of things, it costs no more than $31,600, and that's largely due to the facility needed to house it. The Rotteninator is an interesting gadget because on the surface, it doesn't look all that much, but if we match that to something that can instantly rot food in our world, like intense microwave energy, it's actually an impressive bit of kit. A machine with that type of strength would cost $45,000, but don't forget, Doof made this handheld, and it's obviously safe to use without standing behind glass like most microwave energy. So for those reasons, he's easily sunk upwards of $93,000 in the gun. And the Sunday Maker-inator is essentially a super expensive ice cream maker. It can make enough ice cream in one serving to fully submerge Doof, so that's about 300 liters in one go. If we're a little conservative and say that machine only has 20 scoops inside of it, that's 6,000 liters of ice cream. The raw materials alone for that would cost $10,800. Then you've got the robotic arm, the chassis, the inner workings of the machine, not to mention the freezing portion of it. Industrial freezers on average are around $50,000, and with everything else, there'd be no problem thinking Doof forked out over $370,000 for the full thing. So if we add everything up here in this section, That means Doof's everydayinators would have cost him a grand total of 494,600 schmackaroons, which is about as much as a pint of Ben & Jerry's these days. Not as expensive as his other inventions, but I'm just setting you up for the whiplash that's the Do-Over-inator, which debuts in the very last episode of the original series' run. Candace is kind of left in a bit of a sticky situation as it's literally the last day of summer, and she hasn't busted the boys yet. So she pays Doof a visit and stumbles upon his device.
I know what we're gonna do.
It's basically a Groundhog Day machine that gives her the chance to literally do over the day again and again, but the same also goes for Doof, who ends up using his machine to try and stop Agent P, and 22 tries later, he's failed.
Hand me that box of angry weasels, would you, Norm? Yes, they'll do.
And it looks like 23 times is the charm because it works. And so does Doof's plan to take over the tri-state area by becoming governor. And as soon as he's in power, the first thing he does is relieve Perry of his duties.
To thwart the tri-governor of the tri-state area, which is me. Looks like your thwarting days are over, Perry the Platypus.
But Doof's do-over-inator isn't exactly one of his better-built inventions, so after all the use it's had, it starts fracturing the timeline, looping the day over and over, and of all people, it's Candace who manages to fix things. Doof goes back to his normal villainous ways, and Candace actually ends up enjoying the last day of summer with her brothers. But what we really want to know is, how much is a machine that resets time gonna cost to make? There's all sorts of variables at play here, like would it even be possible to make? But let's say it is, okay? You need a theoretical temporal field generator to create time, and then have a device manipulate it constantly to keep it in a loop. The amount of research needed for a project like this would probably sit right around the $2 billion mark. You could add another billion for development and another $315 million for securing a power supply capable of sustaining that sort of energy. So all in all, that's $3,315 million to relive the same day, which depending on the day might actually be good value for money. If you're like me and wondered why Doof had such a big evil lair on top of an apartment block, well, we're about to find out. So turns out the whole thing is a giant robot-inator, and maybe this is the exact thing Doof's needed to take over the tri-state area.
When it comes to havoc, nobody reads like me!
With this thing looking like an easy win for the mad scientist, he takes a seat and enjoys a nice meal, because no one does premature celebrations better than villains.
Oh, where are my manners? Care for some pepper? Just say when.
Ah yes, pepper, that famous sneeze magnet of a spice. I'm sure it's harmless though, because Doof has Perry right where he wants him.
I'm more of a paprika man myself.
Okay, so Doof hasn't got a problem with pepper, but the building he invented sure has. Don't worry, something soft manages to catch Doof's fall, so he's all good.
What an unbelievable stroke of luck.
Ouch! Well, Doof spent his whole life being stepped on by people close to him, so I'm sure he'll bounce back from this in no time. I'm not sure his bank account will be, though, because the amount of money that'd be needed to pull off an entire mecha-like rebuild of an apartment block is just absolutely insane. I know it's nowhere as good or as lavish as Doof's building, but there's a fully automated skyscraper being built in Dubai called the Dynamic Tower. It basically is a rotating skyscraper that self-regulates, so if more people are on one floor, it'll spin to make sure the exit to the floor is prioritized. It's also due to be fully immersed with AI and can generate its own power. Obviously, it's not going to be cheap, and they estimate that it'll cost around $1.2 billion when it's all said and done, but that building can't run through the streets or has an allergy to pepper. I'd argue that just the frame of Doof's building would cost that much, but let's put some meat on those bones. You need a vast wiring network running through every floor with limb coordination systems, sensor arrays, gyros, live mapping, reinforced cable shafts. I could go on and on. That internal tech alone could run up another $5 billion easy. So yeah, Doof's made the most overpowered building of all time, and it's only cost him $6.2 billion. But that's just frackin' nothing compared to Doof's next invention. An invention so costly, it could take multiple countries out of debt. We gotta go out of the main series again and head on over to the Phineas and Ferb Save Summer special, where Doof's had enough of two things, taking over the tri-state area and the sun.
I always have to use SPF 120 sunscreen, and I got this whole crate on sale. It's all 110 SPF. I thought I was getting 120.
Okay, so he burns easily and he's bought a truckload of useless cheap sunscreen. So what? Well, he's got an idea.
Just gonna move the Earth away from the sun just enough that the 110 will work.
So instead of heading to the store and just getting his money back, he's built a super complicated machine that's gonna move the whole planet. And I thought I was lazy. Also, the name is, well, it's a name all right. How does the thing even work though?
The Sunminator. It uses the mass of Jupiter as an anchor to pull the Earth just slightly away from the sun.
As usual, Perry springs into action to stop the monologuing maniac, but this time he accidentally activates the device.
You fired my enabler!
Being pulled away from the sun causes the Earth to start getting colder, and naturally everyone notices, so everyone teams up to get the planet back in position, including Doof. He sees the error of his ways and teams up with Perry to destroy his machine. And everything goes back to the way it was. The seasons are normal and Doof is evil again. But how much would a machine like this cost to put together? Well, spoiler alert, a lot. Now, we do have some tractor beam ideas floating around, but they're small potatoes compared to this. The ones we're inventing are for things like broken satellites and space junk, and they're not even operational yet. The estimated price to build one is right around 20 million, but like I said, we haven't even managed to get it going yet. So a tractor beam of Doof's size and strength is pretty insane. Jupiter is around 600 million miles away. You need to have something that reliably stretched that far while trapping its gravity. That's without taking into account things like a power source, which it realistically needs something like a star for power. So if we tried to make it, our best bet would be a theoretical Dyson sphere, but that's like stupid money because if it were possible at best to make it operational, you'd need $1 quadrillion. Look, I know I sound like I'm making this all up, but think about it. Going to a star, building a sustainable structure around it, the tech needed to harness the energy. You get the idea. You've seen Avengers Endgame. But Doof doesn't use a Dyson sphere. It's not gonna be a whole lot cheaper for him anyway, because I can't see his tractor beam costing anything less than $768 billion, which is enough change to make 36.5 million mustache-inators, which is also arguably a better use of resources. So, bear with me while I say the name. That makes the shift the Earth's position further away from the Suninator by far Doof's most expensive invention to date. Over the years, his biggest and baddest inventions have cost him a combined total of $845,171,824,100. Well, they say money doesn't buy happiness, and never was that more true with Dr. Doofenshmittz. Sure, Doof may be a villain, but compared to some of the biggest and baddest out there, he's a small fish in a big pond, and you best believe the guy popping up on screen now is a big fish. So give him a click to reel him in and see what they're all about. Thanks for watching.